So it looks like Microsoft took quite a bit of heat because of Windows recall. So some things have changed. So I'm going to catch you up on that, and I'm going to show you a way to possibly disable it. Stay tuned. So as we talked about a few weeks ago, one of the new AI features coming to Windows 11 in 24H2 is called Windows Recall. The heat that Microsoft got for this feature was so intense that it got them to actually pull Windows Recall from the Copilot Plus launch. Now, that doesn't mean it's going away completely, but Microsoft is kind of tapping the brakes a bit and pulling Windows Recall back into beta so that they can work on some security enhancements. And this is actually some pretty big news. So we're going to talk about that, and I'm going to show you how you can just completely disable it. But first, I got to pay some bills. So check out today's sponsor. Is your copy of Windows 10 unactivated? Well, it doesn't have to be, because with today's sponsor, VIP SCD Key, you can get a valid Windows 10 license for under $20. Stop dealing with that stupid watermark on the desktop, the valid license for Windows 10. Also, with an activated copy of Windows 10, you can upgrade to Windows 11 for free. Just go to the link in the description below and pick up a valid Windows 10 license key. During checkout, use the code CYBERCPU for a 25% discount. Once you have your key, go to your activation settings in Windows 10 and click on the link that says Change Product Key. Enter the product key you just purchased and hit Activate. Now you don't have to deal with that stupid watermark that come with running an unactivated copy of Windows 10. Now, on with the video. So yeah, Microsoft pulled Windows Recall from the latest beta builds of Windows 11 due to a major backlash from security researchers. It turns out that some of the concerns that I talked about in my last video were true. Windows Recall stored data in a plain text database that was easily readable once the user was logged onto the system. I'm pretty sure Microsoft originally said that the data stored by Windows Recall was supposed to be encrypted. Well, it turns out that they were talking about was the encryption with BitLocker. And as soon as you log into your computer, Windows unlocks the drive. Therefore, anything that is running in the background could potentially see your Windows Recall database. So, if your computer is infected with malware, it would be easy for that malware to scrape personal data from the Windows Recall database. Now, to understand why this is a big deal, I need to go through and explain what Windows Recall is, just in case you didn't see my last video on it. Windows Recall is a feature that's going to take screenshots from within Windows every few seconds, and it's going to use AI to analyze those screenshots to give you essentially a searchable database of everything you do on your computer. Now, like I said in my last video, this sounds like a really useful feature, but if you have any concern whatsoever for your security, then you probably already see the problem right off the bat. And you know, I'm not sure why Microsoft didn't see it to begin with either. By allowing Windows to create a searchable database of everything that you do on your computer and having that database store all of that information in plain text without any encryption is kind of a really bad idea. Now, I admit that I would love to be able to search for things that I've done on my computer. But what I don't want is for anyone else to be able to search through that database also. In fact, I don't want there to be any chance at all that that information stored in that database could get out. And to so quickly have my worst fears for this feature revealed to be true is honestly kind of frightening. However, I'm glad Microsoft did the right thing and pulled it. But it doesn't sound like they're pulling the feature for good. Windows Recall will not release with Copilot Plus PCs, but Microsoft did say that it will be released at a later time through a Windows update. They haven't given a time frame to when that might be. So that means as of right now, Windows Recall is pulled from the Windows Insider program. But in the coming weeks, they claim they're going to be introducing it back into the beta builds of Windows with new security enhancements. Some of the changes that Microsoft is claiming that they're making to Windows Recall is going to be, for one, I think it's kind of the biggest improvement of all, is that Windows Recall is going to be an opt-in service. Originally, it was going to be turned on by default, and you would have to turn it off if you didn't want to use it. However, Microsoft is shifting gears here, and they're going to have Windows Recall turned off by default and allowing people to enable it if they want to use it. When you initially set up a Copilot Plus PC, Microsoft will include the Windows Recall feature into a setup experience so you can choose to turn it on or off initially when you set up your computer. You'll essentially see a window similar to this right here. And the second security enhancement that Microsoft intends to add to Windows Recall is to integrate it into the Windows Hello environment. And I think this will unfortunately require a Microsoft account, but it will lock out all of the Windows Recall program unless the computer's webcam can verify that you're the one trying to use the program. And to make all this possible, Microsoft plans to encrypt the information stored by Windows Recall. So in order for you to access the database, you'll have to re-authenticate through Windows Hello. Now, I'm going to speculate a little bit here. This is definitely an unprecedented move for Microsoft. It's not every day that they decide to pull headline features from upcoming products. I mean, one of the main features that Microsoft has put forward for their Copilot Plus PCs was Windows Recall. Now, these very PCs are going to be released without that feature. That's like releasing a new version of Office and leaving out Word. It's actually a pretty big deal. But I have this stinking suspicion that this move was not the result of our complaints. Rather, imagine the complaints that came from government agencies about this feature being turned on their computers. Because here's the thing. One of my original complaints about Windows Recall was how this information could be used against you if you ever got into any legal trouble and your computer was subpoenaed. I mean, you have the right to remain silent, but if the government seizes your computer, they can pull whatever data they want off of it. Incidentally, it's also a crime to remote wipe your system when it's in evidence. It's called destruction of evidence, and they will prosecute you for it. However, with that said, I'm pretty sure that the government doesn't want what they do on their computers to be available through, freedom of information requests, or worse, government agencies where they are getting investigated for something. I mean, come on. They don't mind spying on you. They just don't want to be spied on themselves. They're all about transparency, unless it's transparency about anything they do, right? Either way, it would probably be best if this information simply wasn't available on your computer in the first place. But unfortunately, I don't have an ARM system that I can use as an example to disable it. Luckily, it doesn't have to be a Quantum Snapdragon processor because Windows Recall has already been enabled on all ARM CPUs using a workaround. That really didn't take long, did it? Unfortunately, though, I still don't have a Windows on ARM system to use, and it wasn't without trying either. I spent 2 days trying to get an ARM emulator to function, and it was just too slow. After 20 hours, I gave up in the middle of trying to bypass the Microsoft account requirements. You know what? I left it overnight, and the next morning, it still hadn't booted for the second time into the Windows welcome experience. And I figure, you know what? If it's going to take over 20 hours just to install Windows, then the Windows that I would be left with would be unusable for an example for this video. I guess a Ryzen 5 5600 isn't fast enough in order to emulate an ARM-based CPU. However, the capabilities of an x86 system to run Windows Recall is already there, and at some point this feature will be on x86 systems. So in anticipation of Windows Recall's re-release on ARM and its eventual release on x86 systems, I'll show you how to disable it. At least theoretically I will. So let's jump on the system and I'll show you how to do it. Okay, so here we are in Windows 11. Now, this is a beta build of Windows 11 right now. If we go into System, and then we go down into About, as you can see, this is 26120.770, and this is 24H2. I installed this because originally I was going to try to get Windows Copilot to work on x86, but unfortunately, the code required to do it just hasn't been released by Microsoft yet, so it just can't be done in x86 yet. And like I said, I tried to emulate it in an ARM ARM emulator, and it was just way too slow. So what I'm going to show you how to do is I'm going to show you how to theoretically disable it once it does come out. And this should still work. It does work currently to disable Windows Recall on ARM-based systems. So I'm essentially just taking these settings and applying them to x86. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on the Start button and we're going to type in regedit. Going to open up our registry editor, and there's two different ways to do this. Obviously, there's for the user and for the local machine. So first, I'm going to show you how to do it for the specific user. So this way, if you want Windows Recall disabled, but you have other users on your computer that don't, then you can do this by a user basis as well. So the first thing, we're going to go into local user, then we're going to go into software, and then from software, we're going to go into policies, and then from policies, we want Microsoft, and then Windows. Now right here, we're gonna have to create another key. So we're gonna go ahead and right click, and you might have this on your system, but if you don't, you'll have to create it. So go ahead and right click, hit new key, and then for the name of this key, it's gonna be Windows AI, and go ahead and copy it exactly how I have it here. And I know I forget sometimes, but I'll try to leave these keys in the description below. If they're not there, then just mention it in the comment and I'll get them in there for you. And then from this point on, once you create the Windows AI key, we're going to go ahead and create a new DWORD 32-bit value. And the name of this one is going to be Disable AI Data Analysis, typed exactly how I have it here, capitalization and all. And then once you create that, we're going to go ahead and open it, and we're going to change the value to 1. And then this right here should disable Windows Recall for the specific user account that we're in. And you know, while we're here, why don't we disable Copilot as well? And to do that, we're just going to go back out of Windows AI and into the Windows key right here. And we're going to go ahead and create another key. So go ahead, right click, hit new key, and then for the name of this key right here, it's going to be Windows Copilot, and then go ahead and hit enter. And then from this point, just like before, we want to go ahead and create a new DWORD 32-bit value, and the name of this one right here is going to be Turn Off Windows Copilot. Seems pretty straightforward. Go ahead and copy it exactly how I have it here, and hopefully I'll have it in the description below as well. So once you create that, go ahead and open it, change the value to 1, and then this should disable Windows Copilot for the specific system that you're on. And if you have the Windows Copilot icon down here, you can always right click and hit unpin from taskbar as well. However, this right here should disable it in Windows anyway. So now that we have it disabled for the user, let me show you how to disable it for the machine. And essentially, it's exactly the same thing we just did, but under local machine as well. So we go under local machine, and then we're going to want to go to software. Then from software, we're going to go down into policies. And then from policies, we want to go into Microsoft, and then in Windows. And then right here, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to right click, hit new key. And for the name of that key, it's going to be Windows AI, one word. And then from there, just like before, we're going to go over here and we're going to have a new DWORD 32-bit value. And this one's going to be Disable AI Data Analysis. Go ahead and hit enter, and we're going to change this value to 1 as well. And then while we're at it, we're going to jump back into Windows. We're going to right click, hit new key, and then for the name of this key, we're going to call it Windows Copilot, and then hit enter. And then from there, just like before, we're going to right click here, hit new DWORD 32-bit value. We're going to paste turn off Windows Copilot, and then we're going to go ahead and open that and hit 1. And this should disable the Windows Recall feature as well as Copilot for the entire machine, regardless of which user account you're using. Now, if you have a system with Windows Recall enabled, then this should disable it for good. In theory, this should apply to systems that don't yet have Windows Recall on them. So that way, when you do receive it in an update, it'll just be disabled from the start and you'll never have to deal with it. But you know, I'll have to revisit this subject once Windows Recall becomes more commonly available and we can actually look at ways to strip the code from Windows completely. I'm sure that that will probably be the best solution, but I'll have to wait until I can actually run it before I can figure out how to get rid of it. But ultimately though, Windows Recall is not the only thing spying on you in Windows. So if you're tired of Microsoft spying on you, then check out this video where I go through and show you how to disable all of the different methods in which Windows spies on you on a daily basis. As always, you guys have a great day.